Good evening and welcome to this week's episode of In the Saddle podcast. I'm Katie Midwinter and I'll be hosting the podcast this evening whilst Chris Loader can have a bit of a break. We'll be looking ahead at all the action across the cards on Saturday at Ayr, Newbury, and hopefully we'll be able to get a chance to talk about the racing at the Curragh too, maybe try and fit in a bit from Newmarket and York as well. Chris, first of all, how does it feel to be let off the hosting duties this week? Are you able to relax a little bit more than usual?
Yeah, I am. It's nice to have a change, take it nice and easy. It feels like I'm on a little bit of a holiday. So yeah, I'm enjoying. I'm going to enjoy it tonight. I think being on the punditry side of things, and yeah, hopefully we can find some winners for the listeners.
Yeah, it's nice to have a bit of a change. So hopefully I do a good job hosting, and hopefully the listeners enjoy it. Before we get into the action at the weekend, let's have a quick look back at the week that's been. We had a full team on the pod last week with Izzy and Liz also joining us. We previewed the St Ledger meeting and I'm pretty sure we found a few winners between us. Now, the Stowell have had the Harvest Festival this week too. We had the Curragh National yesterday and some black type races at Sandown and Yarmouth as well. But what has been your highlight of the past week, Chris?
Yeah, my highlight I'd probably say was last weekend with the St Ledger. We only obviously had 9 runners going into it, but I thought it was actually quite a good renewal, and I think the form could definitely work out well in time. I thought Continuous was a worthy winner on the day, one of your favourite horses in training at the moment. But the one that I was impressed with was Desert Hero. I put him up, and I thought he was maybe a little bit unlucky in the running. It just took him a while to get out and get a clear passage, but when he did, I like the way how he battled and stayed on. Now, obviously, he probably wasn't good enough to beat Continuous on the day, but maybe next season, if they step him up in trip to 2 miles, I think he could be an interesting candidate in the staying division. He's from the family of Dartmouth, who was a really useful stayer to the Queen. So you'd like to think that stepping up in trip, he could go well. He's got a real battling attitude. He's got a heart of a lion, I think. And I think if Connections do decide to keep him in training next year, step him up in those races like the Ascot Gold Cup, the Goodwood Cup, some of the other big staying races as well. I think he could be a major player, and I'm quite excited to see him next season. I thought the Ledger wasn't a bad race at all, and I'm looking forward to see how the form works out.
Yeah, there's even some talk that Desert Hero could make the trip down under and go to Australia for the Melbourne Cup. What do you think of his chances if he does go there?
No, I wouldn't be keen for him to go to the Melbourne Cup personally. I'd just keep him in the UK, give him a nice break for the winter, and then put him in training next year. I think sometimes, even though it is a great race, the race that stops the nation, the Melbourne Cup, I would be a bit concerned he lacks the experience to go down there. I think you need a horse that's maybe a little bit more battle hardened, has got maybe a bit more experience over those kind of stand trips, and I would probably swerve it for the time being, and I think they probably will.
Yeah, maybe a horse that's more like Vauban, because it looks like he's going to be quite difficult to beat in that. I have to agree with you. My highlight was definitely the St Ledger as well. I was really happy to see Continuous win. I was keen on him before the race, and I thought he ran brilliantly to give Aidan O'Brien a 7th St Ledger success. I'd quite like to see him be supplemented for the Arc now, because the Arc, it looks quite a wide open race at the moment. That is, unless Ace Impact turns out to be a real superstar. So I guess we'll see in the next week or so if Continuous is going to be supplemented for the Arc. Do you think that will happen?
Potentially. I would mainly be a little bit concerned about the ground if it was soft. We normally get soft ground arcs now over the last few years, so that would be a slight concern. And for me, Aidan O'Brien, he just doesn't have the kind of horses to run in the arc anymore. Yes, he will run probably a couple of horses in there, but he hasn't had the winner since 2016, and in the last few years he's not really had a horse even good enough to be right in the mix. So that would be a bit of a concern for me, and I'll probably be looking elsewhere from Ballydoyle. Sorry to offend you there, Katie. I know you're Aidan's biggest fan at the moment.
No, I think the ground has probably been going against his horses in recent renewals. I know that Luxembourg, I'm a big fan of his, and last year the ground completely went against him, because I think he's a good 1.25 mile horse, but 1.5 miles on soft ground, I don't think it's Luxembourg's thing. But continuous. He's quite ground versatile. We know now he stays 1 3/4 miles very well, and I think dropping him back in trip, it could be quite a good idea. But yeah, going back to Desert Hero as well, I was really impressed with him in the paddock. He looked very well at Doncaster. I was lucky enough to be there. It was a great atmosphere as well. See the King Charles and Queen Consort there too. I thought it brought some great extra media attention to the sport and positive attention as well, which is always a good thing. But now we'll look ahead to this weekend's action, and we have Ayr's big flat meeting to discuss. And we're going to kick off in the 150. It's the Virgin Bet Daily Extra Places Duneside Cup Stakes. It's a listed race over 1.25 miles. And My Prospero heads the market for William Haggis at 11.28. We have Royal Rhyme at 7-2 for Carl Burke. Helvic Dream, an Irish Raider, at 8-1 for Noel Mead. Pride of America as well, around 8-1 for Amy Murphy. And it bigger the rest. Chris, who caught your eye in the 150 at Ayr?
Yeah, I'm probably going to be boring here and go with the favourite, My Prospero. Some people might say he's been a little bit disappointing this year. Maybe not quite gone on to the heights that people thought he was going to go down. But I just think he's had a couple of excuses. It's interesting that they're actually reaching here for the first time, cheap pieces. Maybe they think he just needs to focus a little bit. But to be fair to him, what's he done? He's finished 4th in the Lock-In during his seasonal reappearance. That wasn't a bad run. He then went to the Prince of Wales at Royal Ascot behind Mustardaf. We've seen that form been boosted. And last time out, he was beaten half a length by Owens Burrows' Anna Failer in the City of York Stakes. I didn't necessarily think that was a bad run. I think Al Failer didn't run too badly, finishing 5th in the Irish Champion Stakes. I think that was arguably one of the best races we've seen so far on the flat this year. This is obviously a massive step down in grade from what he's been running in over the last 12 months or so. So they found a good opportunity. I've got 11-8 on my screen. I don't know if you've got that price in front of you, Katie, but I think he'll probably go off even money on the day. Bit of juice in the ground won't harm him as well. His probably main season target will be the Champion Stakes. On Champions Day at Ascot. He finished 3rd in the race last year when he wasn't too far behind Bay Bridge. So I could see him definitely going back there. And I think this is a good prep race for that target probably next month. William Haggis won the race a few years ago with the Dayeb, who was a good horse for the stable, and for me, I think he's been found a really good opportunity. So sorry to be boring, but I'm going to side with the jolly My Prospero.
Yeah, I couldn't really put anyone off My Prospero, to be honest. You make a good case for him there, Chris, and he's £9 player of the field on ratings. Also, William Haggis, he had a 38% strike rate at Ayr last season, and I don't think he'd be sending a horse all the way from Newmarket up to Scotland just to make up the numbers. And it is a big drop in grade for him to listed company. So, look, he has a favourite chance, but I was really keen on his chances at York last time out, and I'm not going to stick with him, I'm afraid. I think he could potentially be vulnerable to maybe a more improving type in Royal Rhyme or in the Irish Raider Helvic Dream, who I thought ran very well to finish 3rd in the Royal Whip Stakes. I think that's a good form line. I think he'll enjoy softer conditions. I believe it's been raining in this afternoon, and it is forecast for more rain as well. So I think if it does turn into quite testing round, maybe that could get My Prospero beaten. So I'd be happy to take him on, possibly with Helvic Dream, but I don't think it would be any surprise to see him win. And really looking at him on the card, on ratings, he really should be winning this. So those are my thoughts. I think probably Helvic Dream from an each way angle, he could just make the frame.
Yeah, I think Connections would be really disappointed if My Prospero didn't win this, and probably win it well as well, considering that they've always really held him in high regard. So this is definitely the easiest opportunity he's had for a long time. And like I say, I think William Haggis would be really frustrated if he didn't win this.
a first-time cheek piece as well. That can make all of the difference. And I'd say you're right with the price. 11 to 8 is the best price I'm seeing, but he's 5 to 4 elsewhere, and he could well shorten because he is the class in the field. So yeah, William Haggis, he could get off to a good start with my Prospero on Saturday. The second race we're going to look at, a little bit different this time, a 25 runner field in the Virgin Bet Air Silver Cup handicap over 6 furlongs. Rathbone is the market leader at 15 to 2. Jump the Gun 8 to 1. Gulliver 9 to 1. Wob 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 10 to 1. Call Me Ginger at 12. Danzan at 12. And bigger are the rest. Chris, a bit of a minefield in this one. A tough race to try and work out. Who made your shortlist?
Yeah, I'm probably gonna stay loyal here to Wob Wob Wob. I put him up last time where I thought he ran an absolute cracker in the Great St Wilfrid. He's been campaigned over the last couple of years more over 7 furlongs to a mile, and I thought it was a good move to drop him back over the sprinting trip last time out. He won his group on the far side, so I think you really do have to mark up that effort. Summer Gans went on to dead heat at the Ebor Festival next time out, so the form doesn't look too bad there. He's probably going to be up with the pace. They've booked Holly Doyle, who's, in my opinion, one of the best jockeys from the front. So if this horse can get off to a really good start, he might just be hard to peg back, and we know he's got the stamina to last over a little bit further. And I think his mark of 87 isn't too bad, but you could make a case for plenty in here. I think sometimes this race can have a draw bias. The last few years it's been handy to be low. Wob 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 stall 11. That's not too bad. I think the winner of this race last year, Dusky Lord, he was in 10, so pretty similar position there from the draw. Second in that last year's renewal was 13 with Woven, so he's drawn in the right kind of area, so that's going to give us some hope here. But this is going to be hard. I think you'll be doing well to get one in the first 6, maybe 7 places on offer with some bookmakers. I think you're going to probably want a couple of darts, but for me, I'm just going to keep it simple here. Wob Wob Wob.
Well, I think the top 2 in the market, Rathbone and Jump the Gun, are probably quite well in here, and my preference would be Rathbone. He's about £6 well in on official ratings, and he has Bonaplanus claiming £3 off his racing rate, and I think just off the mark of 82, he's got an excellent chance here. He's looking for a hat-trick of wins. He finished last but one in last year's renewal for his previous connections. But I think the higher draw this time out and a lower weight, I think he could see him be more competitive. And I don't think the soft ground will be too much of a worry for him either. But Jump the Gun, I think, has got an excellent chance as well. There were a couple at bigger prices that really caught my eye. One of them is Admiral D. He does have a low draw, but I think he could be able to outrun what is likely to be a massive odds on the day. He's £10 lower than when he was 7th in the Air Gold Cup last year. He hasn't been in great form this season, but I think if he's able to rediscover some of his old form, he's got a good chance of making the frame. He's only a 4-year-old. I think he could still be capable of showing a little bit more improvement against some of his older rivals. So I'd give him a squeak. And also Snazzy Jazzy, who's the outsider of the field. He's a classy performer on his day. I think he will enjoy conditions if they do turn up as quite soft on the day. And he's recently switched Yaz, now trained by Seb Spencer, and maybe that could just reignite a bit of a spark. He's around 66 to 1. He's a course and distance winner, so maybe one to outrun his odds there.
Yeah, Snazzy Jazzy, just looking back at the roll call of this race, he actually won it in 2018. I remember him. He was a really good horse, but like you say, he kind of lost his way a little bit over the years. But yeah, why not? With soft ground likely to be in his favour, big price, he could definitely maybe outrun his odds.
Yeah, that's it. As you said, it's going to be difficult to find one to even place in here. So, I mean, why not take a chance on a proven horse at the track in the race in Snazzy Jazzy? Maybe one to watch. The next race we're going to preview is the 3 o'clock, the Virgin Bet Best Odds Daily Firth of Clyde Stakes, a Group 3 for the fillies, run over 6 furlongs. And Rakia, hat-trick seeking Rakia, is the market leader, around 11 to 8. Great Generation, 9 to 2 for Marco Botti. Dorothy Lawrence, 15 to 2. Navassa Island, 15 to 2 as well. Pretty Crystal, 10 to 1, and bigger are the rest. 9 go to post here, Chris. Who takes your fancy?
Yeah, I thought this was a little bit of a tricky puzzle to work out, because I think there's potentially a few likely winners. There could be a few results here thrown up, and I wouldn't be at all surprised by any of them. Rakia, I was really impressed with her win last time out at Haydock. I think I remember WhatsApping you saying, back this horse next time out. So obviously it's finding itself here. But I think she's maybe a little bit too short, and the ground that day at Haydock was a little bit quicker. So I might be a little bit put off if the ground is going to be riding on the soft side. Dorothy Lawrence is a horse that's been to the well plenty of times. She's pretty battle hardened. She's got form at this track. She could go well. She's the best in here on ratings of 100. And then we got Great Generation, who's 2 out of 2, won a listed race last time out of Chester and could be open to more improvement. The one I came down on the side of was Pretty Crystal for Richard Fahey. Richard Fahey's actually got quite a good record in this race. He's won 2 of the last 3 renewals. This filly, Pretty Crystal, last time we saw her, she finished 4th at Goodwood in a Group 3 there in the Prestige Stakes on soft ground. She didn't run too badly. She was just beaten 2.5 lengths. I just think maybe she didn't get home that day. I think the drop back to 6 furlongs will suit her. We've seen the form boosted by Darnation, who won at the St. Leger meeting at Doncaster last week, winning the Group 2 juvenile fillies race on the card there. So it's good to see that form get a boost. And I just think there'll be a bit of pace on in here. I think Dorothy Lawrence likes to go forward, so it was set up quite nicely for her. And I just think Pretty Crystal, I've got 10 to 1 in front of me here. I think that's a good each way bet. We've got enough runners in here for 3 places. So yeah, as it stands at the moment, I think Pretty Crystal could be a good one to at least fill the frame.
Pretty Crystal it is for Chris. I'm really keen on the chances of Dorothy Lawrence in this. As you mentioned, Chris, she has that bit of experience. She's the highest rated filly in the race. And I think her last 2 runs have been very impressive, including at higher grade as well. The ground is probably the slight unknown with her. And I think she might be a better filly on better ground. But I don't see too much of a reason why she shouldn't cope with it if it is a little bit soft there. I thought her run when she was up the trip at York, her run behind Relief Rally, I thought it was a brilliant form line. And I think it really sets the standard in here. She's form on good to soft ground. It's just that unproven form if it does turn into really testing ground. But her sire's progeny, they have a 22% record on soft ground, and a dam was placed in a listed race on soft too. So I'm hoping that it won't be too much of an inconvenience if it does turn up as quite soft. Carl Burke is a trainer to follow at Ayr as well, I'd say, and he's in form at the moment too, doing well with his 2-year-olds this year as well. So I think Dorothy Lawrence, I'm really keen on her chances. She was a bit bigger earlier as well in the market at double figure price, and I thought that was very surprising. So now she's around 15 to 2, best price available for her, but she's as short as 4 to 1 with some bookmakers, which I think is a fairer reflection on her chances. So for me, I'm really keen on Dorothy Lawrence.
Yeah, Dorothy Lawrence, I wouldn't put you off, like you say, at all there. She was probably the next one on my radar. Carl Burke as well. It's been well documented this season how well he's been going with his juveniles. I think I saw the other day he had his 50th juvenile winner of the season, which is just unbelievable. This horse obviously has been a good servant for him so far this season. The only concern I would have maybe with Dorothy Lawrence is I thought Soprano should have won that race last time out at Salisbury in the Dick Pool Stakes. Kind of blew the start, didn't get the rub of the green and then flew home late on. I'd just be worried maybe Dorothy Lawrence could be vulnerable to a closer. But yeah, I think she's got a good solid chance, and I think she'll be there or thereabouts. So if you fancy her, I wouldn't put you off at all.
The next race on the card is the 3:35 Virgin Bet Air Gold Cup Handicap, a heritage handicap run over 6 furlong. Just the 25 runners in here. An easy task to find the winner in this one. Horatio is the market leader, 8-1. Joan Lepine for Michael Appleby at 10-1. Significantly for Julie Camacho, 10-1. Summergand, an old favourite there for David O'Meara, 10-1. Elise Dancer at 12s. Rohan at 12s. Bielsa, former winner of the race, at 14s. Mr. Wagyu, another old favourite, at 14s. And bigger are the rest. Chris, who made your shortlist in this one?
Yeah, this is really tricky. I said to you earlier that every year it comes round to this race, so I always fancy one. I always think it's key to be up with the pace. I think if you get off to a slow start, you're up against it, and it's just really hard to come back from it. So I want to be looking at something that's going to be up with the pace. And normally when I put one of these kind of horses up, they actually do blow the start, funnily enough. So I'm hoping it's not going to happen again this year. But the one that I quite like is Northern Express for Paul Mulrennan and Michael Dodds. He's carrying one of the bigger weights in the field. He's number 4 on your race card, so he's carrying the 4th highest weight of 9 stone 11. Off a mark here of 103. Has been campaigned really well this season, over slightly further. He's placing plenty of big handicaps over 7 furlongs to a mile. I know this is a race that Michael Dodds really wants to win. I actually saw, I think it was on one of the Racing Life programmes on Racing TV, My Racing Life. They actually went to Michael Dodds' yard before the Evil Festival, and he was saying that they were toying with running Northern Express in this race because they're yet to win the race. And I think, like I say, he's a horse that normally is ridden quite prominently, or he can come off a strong pace. He's quite versatile, but I don't think he'll be too far off it at all. He's 25-1. You know, I think that's a big price. He was last seen finishing 5th behind Ropey Guest. Time before that, he finished 4th at Ascot. He won at York, 3rd at Royal Ascot behind Chun, who's been a good horse this season for Rich Tannen. Plenty of decent form next to his name. Yes, he may be a bit high in the weights, but I think he's going to run a pretty good race, and I think he'll go close. Summergand as well is a horse you have to give a chance to. Obviously, he's top weight in here, but he regularly runs his race in these kind of events. And the old boy Bielsa as well, previous winner of the race, looks like he's been laid out for it. He's in there off 99. He did run off this handicap mark in the race last year, so maybe he's not quite that well in, but we know he can handle the track. He doesn't mind a bit of ease in the ground, and his last run at Glorious Goodwood, when he finished 3rd in the Stewards Cup, I thought was a good run. So yeah, I think Bielsa as well would have to make the shortlist. But if I had to give a number 1 fancy, it'd probably be Northern Express.
Yeah, Chris, I was actually looking quite a bit at Bielsa, and I think he's got a very good chance of a mark of 99. He's £1 higher than when he won last time, but it's just that draw from stall 1. I think it could be a bit of an inconvenience for him, which is a shame, but you never know. I mean, stranger things have happened. He could break well from the stalls and get into a good position, and you know they might be faster on that side. We'll have to wait and see, but for me, stall 1, it put me off slightly with him in here. The one that I really am leaning towards, and it's quite unusual for me because I tend to look away from the favourites, especially in a really big race like this. I quite like to go for a big price horse and hope that they can outrun their odds. But I'm really keen on Orazio for Charlie Hills, Jim Crowley in the saddle. I just think this horse has got a big handicap in him. Now, the last 3 times he's raced, he's gone off as favourite. He won at Ascot in a Class 3 handicap off a mark of 93. He then went to Ascot again and finished 6th behind St. Lawrence in the Wokingham Stakes off a mark of 102. I thought he ran respectably there. He went off as a 72 favourite. So Connections, they obviously thought he had an excellent chance. He was then backed into 130 favourite when he raced at Goodwood. in the Stewards Cup. Now, it was really heavy ground on that day, and I think after this race that he ran in, they abandoned the rest of the card because conditions were just unraceable, really. And his excuses were really that it was just too soft for him. It was described as heavy, and I think anyone could forgive him that run. He comes here off a mark of 101. Maybe you get soft ground again, but I don't think soft ground will be too much of a problem because he has winning form on soft. I think just on that day at Goodwood, it was unraceable and therefore it just didn't suit him at all. But I think on a slightly better ground here, I think he's got an excellent chance off 101. He's favourite again. If he does get backed a little bit more, then you'd have to think that Connections think he's got an excellent chance of winning. And I do think he's got a big handicap in him, and I think he's possibly still ahead of the handicapper. He's only raced 8 times, and I think there could be more potential in him and more progression to come. So I'm really looking towards the head of the market here with Horatio. I think he's got an excellent chance. And the other I quite like happens to be the second favourite is Juan Lepin for Mick Appleby. Now, he is £8 well in officially on ratings because he's rated 106 and he's running off 98. I don't think he will mind softer ground either. And I think that run behind Comanche 4's last time out beaten 3/4 of a length, that's a very good run in a listed company at York. He's got an excellent chance in here for me. They both got high draws as well, and I wouldn't be looking away from the top of the market. I think they're the two for me in here, Horatio and Juan Lepin.
Yeah, I wouldn't put you off either of those. I say you could make a case for plenty in there, and yeah, they've obviously found themselves towards the top of the market. I think Horatio, he's been, like you say, put in for a few big pots, expected to win one of them, and maybe this could be his day in the sun. So yeah, Horatio, he could be a good favourite come post time on the day.
Significantly is another as well, drawn in stall 14, shouldn't be too much of an inconvenience. Off a mark of 94, I'd say he's got a very good chance for Julie Camacho. Now, I quite liked him last season, but I think that he's been found in the market really now, and he used to be going under the radar a bit more, but look, he's been performing very consistently this season, and I think he could be there or thereabouts as well. Now, next we turn our attention to Newbury. Less runners in this one, 5-runner race to open the card at Newbury in the 1:30 Dubai International Airport World Trophy Stakes at Group 3. And Chris, I know one caught your eye in here.
Yeah, that's the favourite, Sense of Duty. Obviously not original picking this one out, but I thought it was interesting that Tom Marquand is going to be riding at Newbury on Saturday and not Ayr. You would have thought first thoughts that he would have been taking the ride on My Prospero, but he looks like he's going to ride Sense of Duty. That's probably his main big fancy of the day. This is a really interesting filly. She's yet to taste defeat. She's 4 wins from 4 runs. Hasn't been seen since winning a Group 3 on Northumberland Plate Day at Newcastle last summer. So it's a shame that we've not seen her for a little while, but I think they must think she's capable of landing a big pot, because otherwise they probably wouldn't keep her in training. You know, she could have easily gone off to the breeding sheds, and the fact she's coming here and there's already a lot of market confidence behind her suggests that they think she's got a good chance. I was just looking at her upcoming entry to see what races she was due to run, and I wondered if maybe she had an entry in the Abbey, and she doesn't. Her big target, looks like on paper at least, is the Champion Sprint Stakes and Champions Day at Ascot, and they're obviously looking to get a prep race into her. She's entered obviously on Saturday, and she's entered as well in a conditions race at Beverley on Tuesday. I wonder if they're thinking maybe if the ground is too soft at Newbury, because she probably doesn't want it bottomless, they might run her in that conditions race at Beverley on next Tuesday. So probably ground's coming into their thinking here. So I think they do think she's capable of running a big race in a Group 1, and if she does turn up here, she could be a horse definitely to watch on Saturday afternoon. There's the rest in the field. Rassel, Nymphadora, they've been around the block. We've got an Irish challenger, Thunderbear, and Designer as well for John Butler, a man that I'm always looking at to see his runners. Not to say that she couldn't win, but I think this would be probably a little bit out of her comfort zone, and maybe they're trying to look for a little bit of black type with her. But sense of duty, obviously, if they've got big aspirations, she really ought to be winning this and ought to be winning it well. So sense of duty is one to keep an eye on in the opening race at Newbury on Saturday.
And was there another William Haggis horse you liked in the 205 Dubai Duty Free Autumn Cup handicap?
Yes, there was. The next race on the card, Laffy for Tom Marquand. Again, Ryan, you say for William Haggis. This horse is quite interesting. It's coming back off a little bit of a break. Ran at Royal Ascot, but ran no race whatsoever, and then subsequently had the chop. He's had a gelding operation, and that just might bring out a little bit of improvement. He won a maiden at the back end of last season at Nottingham quite well in soft ground, and I just wonder if he wants a bit of a trip and a bit of soft ground. It was good to firm when he ran at Royal Ascot, and he clearly probably didn't handle the conditions. So a bit of ease in the ground would probably be right up his street. He's got some interesting entries. He's actually in the Old Rowley Cup at Newmarket next month. That's always a good meeting, that is. I think that's when we've got the Dewhurst and the Cesarevich meeting. So clearly they think that he's going to be going well in a few decent races this autumn. And I think Laffy, he's currently 5-1 at the moment. I think he's one again. Maybe not necessarily to have a bet on, but maybe one to keep an eye on.
So it could be a very good day for William Haggis with My Prospero for him up north, Sense of Duty and Laffy in the first two races at Newbury. And I actually quite like the look of two of his horses in the 240 Dubai Duty Free handicap at Class 2, run over 1.25 miles. Balance play is your favourite at 7-2 for Rafe Beckett. Totnes 9-2 for Andrew Balding. Le Mans for Richard Hannon at 7-1. Mustazid for Harry Eustace at 7-1. And bigger are the rest. Did anything catch your eye in the 240, Chris?
Yeah, well, I think before I give my selection in this race, Katie, I think the listeners of Devon are going to be a little bit upset with you. It's actually Totnes. Lovely town near Dartmouth in South Devon. I've been there myself a couple of times. Got a couple of nice pubs, so if you're ever in that part of the world, I would definitely recommend a meal there. But
sorry, the Devon.
Yeah. If you're from Devon, feel free to bombard Katie's DMs. I'm sure she'll love it. But yeah, going back to this race, Certain Lad for me is a horse that I think he's very hard to win with, but he is coming into a bit of form. I put him up last time out when he ran at Sandown. He finished second behind Dual Identity, who surely could have a good chance in the Cambridge handicap next weekend. But I just think Certain Lad, this is a winnable race for him. Now, he has to carry top weight, but George Bass is booked for Jack Shannon, claiming the £3. He rode him last time, and I just think he wants a little bit of ease in the ground. I don't think he wants it too quick. If you go back earlier in the season, he finished third at Chester's May meeting when he was only beaten 2.5 lengths behind Pride of America. We've seen that horse go on to win the John Smith's Cup in the summer this season at York. So clearly has got the class in him to run a big race. And I just thought this could be his day. Balance play. Has to bounce back last time out. I'm not sure if Rafe Beckett's horses, even though they've had a tremendous season, I'm just wondering now if they're starting to get a little bit found out. Totnes, the correct pronunciation, he would have a chance. Tashisu's a horse that, oh my God, he's been a cliff horse of mine this year. But I just think he's tripless. He's worth taking on. Gassi, not sure. There's a few in here that I think unlikely to probably run their race, and I think if Certain Lad can replicate that run at Sandown last time out, I think he's going to go very close. So certain lad for me.
Well, I respect your loyalty to certain lad. You've been putting him up for a while now, so hopefully he can get the win for you. I have to say I didn't have too strong a fancy in here, but I did have a look at the two William Haggis horses. Now, Garcia you'd expect to be the first string with Tom McWand on board, but I thought Millie Bosch was a bit of an interesting entry in here. He was sent off as 7-2, price of 7-2 for the Chesterfield Cup handicap at Goodwood, where Ancient Rome went at 33-1. I'll just throw that in there. Good old Ancient Rome.
That's when men think about it, you see.
But no, then he only managed 9th, really. It was quite a disappointing run. 11th last time out at Doncaster on soft ground. I think they've expected more from this horse, and it may be because if you look back through his form, he finished 3rd in the Prix du Jockey Club at Chantilly once upon a time to the fantastic St Mark's Basilica, was beaten a length and 3/4, and I think they're probably hoping that he was going to live up to that performance again, and he hasn't really. He's been quite disappointing since. That has really been his peak performance, and he's been unable to replicate it. But I just wonder if there is something in him that, there could be a good run in him. I don't know if it's in this race. He's a big price. He's outside of the field at 16-1, but I just think he's quite interesting. So especially on the heavy ground as it's described at Newbury at the moment, I'd be keeping an eye on him just to see how he gets on with a look to the future, see if there is really any potential there off his mark of 92. But I think, certain lad for you, Chris. I hope he does the business, because you have certainly stayed faithful to him and kept the faith and stayed loyal to him. So hope he runs a good race for you, and I hope Totnes runs well for the people of Devon too. The next race we're going to look at is the Group 2 Dubai Duty Free Mill Reef Stakes 3:15, the feature race on the card at Newbury. Mr. Sketch heads the market at 3-1, 7 questions at 7-2, Array at 5-1, good old Hartem at 11-2, and bigger are the rest. Now, I'm a big fan of Hartem. I've been staying loyal to him this season, and I will be once again. But are you sticking with me, Chris, or are you going for one of the others?
I thought this could be one of the hardest races we're actually previewing on the podcast this week, even though we do have like the Aaron Silver Gold Cup to contend with. But my head was spinning here. I didn't think this is actually a great renewal of the race. Mr. Sketch could be anything, but I would have question marks on a couple of bits of form. 7 questions. Has been to the well a lot of times this season, but is he a horse for next year? I don't know. Ray, I was quite keen on his chances to win last time out at Kempton, but I just don't think he was given the best ride that day by PJ McDonald. Everything that was coming up the far side, it just wasn't the place to be, so maybe you can forgive him there. He's really well backed. He went off 11-8 favourite, so clearly Connection Sport, he would run well. Maybe I might give him another chance and get to fully commit with him there. Hartem, obviously, like you say, he's been a good horse this season, but is looking a little bit exposed. I thought this was really hard. I probably would just side with Array. Obviously, we've had the likes of Harry Angel, Ribchester win this race in the past. I don't think necessarily there's a horse of that calibre in here that could go into those kind of heights. But if I had to give a selection, I probably would just side with Array. But I'm not really convinced by anything in this race. I'm quite happy to leave it alone.
Well, I can definitely see the case with Array. I think he actually represents a lot of value at around 5-1. He's expected to land his maiden at Goodwood when he was just beaten by Mansa Musa, who was really cranked the form by placing in 2 black type races, including a Group 3 at the Curragh. I think Array is a really classy horse with a classy pedigree. And I really think he's a good price at 5-1. But I am staying loyal to Hartum, who is also a lot of value at 11-2 in here. He landed a Group 2 at Goodwood, finished second to what looks like a superstar in City of Troy at Newmarket. Disappointed then at the Gimcrack. I think he was probably unsuited by the drop back to 6 furlongs on good to firm ground. A little bit of ease in the ground here will definitely help him, and I think he's going to have a good chance of bouncing back to some kind of form.
Yeah, I would agree with you with Hartem probably being one of the more likely candidates. I think he is a little bit overpriced. Obviously, he has to bounce back after that run at York, but that form of Iberian looks good. And I think he should be arguably a shorter price than 7 Questions. I think they've got the wrong way around in the market here. I think Hartum should be closer to favourite. So 11-2, like I can see on my screen here, I think that is a slightly big price. But like I say, I wouldn't be at all surprised to see maybe a couple of these horses win, and it's one I've not got a strong opinion on, but I can see your case for Hartum. He's got plenty of good form next to his name, and if he was to replicate any of those good runs, he will probably go very close.
Now we're going to take a look at the Curragh. We're going to go over the Irish Sea to a country that I love very much, the Ireland, and going to see what they have on at the Curragh. We know someone else is going over to the Curragh on Saturday, Chris, and with Ryan Moore down in Australia, Frankie Dettori is booked on a few of Aidan O'Brien's rides.
Yeah, he is. I always take note when Frankie's on a horse for Aidan O'Brien. I think there was a period, I think it was around when we had the COVID going on, that he was actually riding a lot of winners for Aidan. Didn't he ride St Mark's Basilica to win the Dewhurst, didn't he?
Yeah, it was around 16-1 if I remember rightly. I think that's where I fell in love with St Mark's Basilica. I think was he running against Wembley and maybe Battleground too. Then, and I think possibly the third string for Aidan O'Brien there with Frankie on board. Great memories, and also then of course the wonderful Snowfall as well.
Yeah, he's always a good spare if he's around, and when Aidan books him, then you've really got to take note. He's obviously on Navy Seal here. Could be open to more improvement on the betting I've got in front of me. He's actually joint with Grosvenor Square, who's only run the once, but with that ground being tested, he's already got the experience of winning on it at Galway, so that would be a positive. He's actually out of Athena, who wasn't a bad horse for Connections, so you like to think that he could go on to bigger and better things. Just having a look to see what he's entered in here. He's entered in all the big races. He's entered in the Dewhurst. He's entered in the Futurity Trophy Stakes at Doncaster at the end of October. So, a lot of big fancy entries for him. And, if he was to win this, you would definitely expect him to maybe go into one of those big Group 1 races at the end of the season for the juveniles.
Yeah, well, I was at Galway when Navy Seal won there, and for a long way I thought Bad Desire was going to get there, but then all of a sudden Navy Seal just went past, flew to the front and kept galloping all the way towards the line. And I thought Connections must have thought a bit of Bad Desire, because he was deemed good enough to be sent off at short odds for the Group 3 at Chantilly last week. Didn't run at all well there, which lets down the form a little bit, but I do think Bad Desire could be better than that, and Navy Seal beat him quite comfortably at Galway, so he could take another step forward and easily win this race. But the one to beat looks to be Joseph O'Brien Stromberg, who has beaten his rivals by a combined distance of 17 lengths in his last 2 races, and he looks ready to make the step up in class to land a black type win as well. So I think that is quite an interesting race. And of course with Grosvenor Square in there too, only raced the once, he could really be anything. Is Colin Keane on board, Irish champion jockey. Really interesting race, that one, the 2:30 Group 2 Beresford Stakes at the Curragh. Was there anything else that caught your eye at the Curragh, Chris?
There's the big sales race for Goff's Million, always a good spectacle. I think this might be the race that Snazzy Jazzy won, going back onto him. I'm sure he won one of these big sales races over at the Curragh. Maybe it is this one. But Cherry Blossom here is an interesting horse. Frankie's booked to ride that one. But I'm actually going to go with a horse here of Richard Hughes. Havana Great Time. We know that Havana Grey does very well with his juveniles. I just think it's interesting that he sent him over here. I know that night you were doing the Tipstar final, Richard Hughes had a few horses laid out, didn't he? Did he have 2 winners on the night and the other one was second, maybe? I know he had a few, and I think the one that got beat.
He definitely had the winner in my race. I remember that right. Fair Angelica.
Yeah, he definitely did. I think James Dorr was on another winner for him, and then I think the other horse that won, I think that was the horse that didn't win. That was actually the shortest price out of the 3, and I think he was a bit annoyed.
Yeah, he was.
That one didn't win, so Richard Hughes has done really well this year with his juveniles, and I just think that this horse is interesting. Coming over the RSC, Neil Callan, it's just been so good to follow this year. Done me plenty of good turns, and I just think at 25-1, he could be a horse to maybe outrun his odds. Some of his juvenile form isn't too bad, and a big price. He's one that caught my eye.
Yeah, that's a bit of a shrewd pick there from you, Chris. I really like Cherry Blossom. I think it's a very good race. It's going to be very competitive because it's such a valuable race. But Cherry Blossom, I was really taken by her at York when she was beaten a length by Relief Rally. I think that's a good form line, and I would really like to see her win this race. Thought Beauty Thunder was quite interesting for Gare Lions as well. But I think there's a lot in here that could surprise us, and it's a really tricky race. It's going to be very, very competitive as well. Now, we're going to take a quick look at Newmarket because I know there's a few there that you quite like on Saturday, Chris.
Yeah, arguably the feature on the card is a Cesarovich trial, a race that's dear to my heart. I put up Great White Shark the year she won, and then the year that what was the horse that Willie Mullins had?
Great White Shark. Loved her. She's a lovely man.
What was the horse that Burning Victory? I put her up. Was keen on her and
Willie Mullins in the bumper then, Chris.
Yeah, well, Burning Victory was a horse that I thought was such a good thing to win the Cesarovich. Back to each way, so I picked up my money. But I'll never forget when she was chinned by Buzz. She was like 5 lengths clear at the 2 furlong pole. And the pair of them ran away with it. And just to be mugged in the shadow of the post, that's one that I'm never going to forget. And another horse that I thought was going to go there was a horse that I really like called Ocean Wind of Roger Teals. A few years ago, I earmarked him out for this race when I was going on a big Nat winning streak, and he bolted up in this trial of 5-4, and then they said he was going to go to the Cesarovich, but Connections made a mess of the paperwork, which meant, unfortunately, he never got to run. So I always like to look at a horse for the Cesarovich in October at Newmarket, and looking at this race, there's definitely a case to be made for a few. I think a few of these are going to be targeting that race. The likes of Campaign Trail has been quite progressive on his last 2 starts. Rafe Beckett, he won a good race last time at Nottingham, where the form hasn't worked out too bad. Grand Providence as well for Andrew Bolden has been maintaining her form really well. But I just think them being 3, even though they do get the weight for age allowance, it's a bit of a different ball game going on against older horses in this kind of race. And I think those that have a bit more experience, that will serve them in good stead. Bashful Boy is interesting for David Pipe. Tom Quealy booked. Jump trainers have a very good record in the Cesarovich, so that's always something you have to keep an eye on. But the one I've come down on here, I think this horse could be a good one. Does have a entry for the race in the Cesarovich next month, and is 33-1 anti-post. That is Last Ammo for Richard O'Brien and Jamie Spencer. Now, this horse actually won at the Galway Festival at 40-1, but was staying on really strongly. Then went on to Kilcarney, and then again was coming from the rear, and was a bit of a real eye catcher that day, running on. I just think this horse wants a real good trip over 2 and a bit miles, and I think this horse off a mark of 90 could actually be well handicapped for this kind of trip. If you go back even 2 starts ago, finished second behind a horse called Vicio, who actually placed today, finished second in a good race at Listowel in the Premier Handicap there. So there's plenty of good form lines, and I just think this horse over these 2 mile trips does have a little bit more to offer, and I could see Jamie Spencer, could be Classic Spencer, sitting out the back and picking up the pieces late on, but there's definitely a few that you could make a case in here for. But I think Last Ammo, if this horse could run well, could book his ticket for the Cesarovich next month. So that's definitely a race I'm going to be keeping an eye on. Then there's just one more race at Newmarket I just want to touch upon. Moving on to the last race on the card, the 5:10. We've got the amateur jockeys, Cambridge. No prices through currently at the time recording here. But I still have faith it's going to be turned out quickly again. Won the Ledger Legends race really easily for Tom Scudamore last weekend. But I think this one could still be well handicapped and is going really well. Stays over 1.2 miles, so should still be doing her best work, or his best work, at the end. If you look at some of the horses he's beaten this season, Warren Hill, that horse went on to win. He then beat Alakaifi by a short head. That horse won at the weekend at Doncaster. Totnes is in that race as well, who's arguably a fair handicapper, and then ran a good race the next time out when finishing 4th at Newmarket on the July course. So plenty of good form next to their name. Fern O'Brien has been getting quite a few opportunities in this kind of level, and I think is well in as well, despite having to carry a £6 penalty for that win last weekend. I think this horse probably is likely to go off favourite, but would have a favourite's chance in my opinion, and I still have faith. Is another one I think punters should be keeping an eye on Saturday afternoon.
Interesting thoughts from Chris there on the card at Newmarket. I had one more I quite fancied, and it's in the last at York in the 5:30. It's a Class 4 handicap. And there's a horse in here, he's been a bit of a cliff horse for me. It's Dark Jedi for Tim Easterby. I just think he's very well handicapped off a mark of 83. He's been used to running in higher class company, and he's 12 pounds below his last winning mark now. And that was when he was victorious at Doncaster last October. This is his 53rd career start, but it's at a track where he often runs quite well. And I think the dropping class, as well as the ease in the ground conditions, I think it could put him in with a really good chance. And he's usually a nice each way price as well. So one for me at York. There's a lot running at York that old favourites of mine, but Dark Jedi is the one that has really caught my eye, and I think he has an excellent opportunity of returning to the winner's enclosure.
Yeah, I've got one just to add at York as well. This is a really long podcast, so we're dragging it out, but one I quite liked here at York, arguably their best race on the card is it's a 3:45 7 furlong handicap. Percy's Lad for the Kublers was a good run last time out, just hinting at a return to form. Finished second at Chester behind Master Richard, and I just think it's down to a good mark now of 94. Is running some good races this season. Didn't run badly at all at Royal Ascot, finishing 7th behind Witch Hunter. Finished 4th over a mile at this track last year, so we know he can go well at this venue. And he was actually rated £3 higher then. And Percy's Lad, I just think with Ross Orion booked, he's riding like a demon at the moment. Kubler's going well. I'm not sure what price he's going to be, but if you can maybe get around about the 8-1 kind of mark, I think that's a solid each way bet, and I think he'll go close. So Percy's Lad is my final selection of the podcast this week.
Well, it has been a long podcast, but it's been quite enjoyable. I've enjoyed it. Hope you have too, and I hope the listeners have enjoyed it. So if they got this far, they can let us know what they thought of this podcast. A little bit different to usual, but no, hopefully they did enjoy it. So please let us know if you did. And don't forget to follow us on all the social media channels and on YouTube now as well. Please remember to gamble responsibly, and we'll be seeing you again soon.